My name is Sydney Roberts, and today I will be talking about the Menendez brothers case. I really think that this case is very interesting because I do think that it can help millions of people around the world, not just in the United States, about how they can get out of toxic situations and how they can get their message or what's going on and happening to them out there, and how they can do that safely without hurting anybody. And like let them know that they're not alone and that this happens to so many other people, and it just really needs to be talked about. And I think that this case can do that. And so, did you know that there are 463,000 sexual assault cases in just the United States every year? I've researched and watched the documentary, the TV shows, and I've done my own research by myself to know all the details that have gone into this case to come to the conclusion of what my opinion is and what I believe should happen to Eric and Lyle Menendez. The Menendez brothers suffered their childhood with sexual assault that should be looked into, because throughout the case, people wanted to brush over this, and I will tell you why. But women are not the only ones who are sexually assaulted, but men are too. And I think people have such a hard time believing that because of how dominant men are and how much stronger physically they can be and the amount of stuff that they can do compared to women. But that does happen to men a lot more than people think. However, since people had a hard time believing Eric and Lyle were being sexually assaulted by their father, it led them to prison without the possibility of parole. The people who had a hard time believing that they were being sexually assaulted are the male in the jury. They did not have sympathy for them, and they had a hard time believing it since they were male and didn't think that it happened to men. They only thought that this kind of stuff happened to women, especially back in the day. They received so much sexual assault that it gave them major PTSD, and it made it really hard for them to come back from that, and it made it really hard for them to get out of that situation. So this caused the majority of people to want to overlook this and didn't want the sexual assault to be a factor in what was going on. And so their father made it very clear to them that they were trapped in this situation and they would have nothing without him. And the possibility of them running away would not work because he would constantly track them down. And they would have nothing. They would have no money. They would be by themselves completely, and they would have nobody to rely on. And he made it very clear that he was their everything, and he got everything for them. And so he really wanted, their dad really wanted their family to look very picture perfect and wanted their family to be respected in society. Meanwhile, their mother had overlooked what was going on inside the household, which led Eric and Lyle to be very ripped apart, and there was so much discord because their father was doing all this sexual assault to them, and their mother wasn't doing anything about it to help them get out of that situation. And the reason why the mother did not want to do anything to get them out of that situation is because she loved their father so much, and she didn't want them to be ripped apart initially because he had been cheating on her. And she knew about it, but if she had let him do that and continued to let him do that, then he was willing to stay with her. And she didn't want to tell him to stop hurting her children sexually, so to make him upset with her. So she just let it happen. And so that gave him such a high and upper hand in their family and controlled them. And she was so in love with him, and she got very upset with Eric and Lyle because she felt like they were getting in between their marriage. And so that led her to neglect them mentally and tell them that she hated them and that she wished she never had them. And this caused her to be very suicidal. And she had left Eric and Lyle with their toxic dad. and didn't want to do anything about it because of how much she loved him. And I think that it is really important to share this case because there are so many people in the same situation and they don't know what their next move should be, so they can learn from the mistakes of Eric and Lyle and do this a safer route without having to hurt anybody. But nobody wanted to believe Eric and Lyle, so they were sentenced to life in prison when they were stuck in this toxic household and they did not know what to do. So I really think that they should get a second chance to be able to be with their families outside of jail and to really live life and be the fathers that they want to be to their children.